to see you guys, even digitally. I wanted to share this a little bit longer, extended version of the sermon so that we could keep those Zoom calls a little bit shorter. So I wanted to unpack a few ideas that I didn't have time to unpack on Sunday morning. So the first thing I wanted to dive into is really the idea of in John 15, it says, Jesus says, "I am the vine, and you are the branches. Whoever abides in me, and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit." And this is the key phrase: "For apart from me, you can do nothing." And I was thinking about just this phrase and this image of Jesus being the vine and us being the branches. As Jesus gets closer and closer to Jerusalem, he uses this image more and more, and he uses it in different circumstances. He even uses it in a parable in Mark 12 that we'll get to in a moment. But I was just thinking about this image, and as Jesus is going from a grove, the olive grove, on the top of Mount Olives, and he's walking down into the valley and then through the gate into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday, palm branches waving everywhere, as we talked about on Sunday. And as he's walking in on a donkey, not a horse, so he's riding on a donkey, a symbol of peace, instead of a horse, which is a symbol of warfare. And he's riding in, and as he's getting closer, he laments over Jerusalem, that it's not getting why he's there. It's not understanding that he came to establish a different kind of kingdom, not simply an earthly kingdom, but bringing heaven's kingdom to meet earth. And so with all of that in mind, I wanted to give us a little context on why Jesus keeps talking about vine and branches. That why does he keep talking about grapevines? Why does that keep coming up? And I think a big reason is he's quoting from Isaiah chapter 5, where it talks about, it says in Isaiah 5, "Let me sing for my beloved my song concerning his vineyard. My beloved had a vineyard on a very fertile hill." And then it talks about preparing this vineyard, giving everything he could to make this vineyard be a success, clearing stones, planting choice vines, even a giant watchtower in the middle, having fields and just beautiful wine opportunity to make good wine. And yet it says it yield wild grapes or worthless grapes, or the Hebrew is literally stinky grapes, good for nothing grapes. And God compares this vineyard to Jerusalem. And at the end in verse 7 it says, "For the vineyard of the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel, and the men of Judah are his pleasant planting." He looked for justice. He looked for people to do the right thing, but instead he found bloodshed and people doing the wrong thing. He looked for righteousness, but instead he found an outcry of people doing the exact opposite of what he wanted them to do. And so that context of Isaiah 5 sets us up for Mark 12, where as Jesus is walking towards Jerusalem, he says this, "And he began to speak to them in parables, and he said, a man planted a vineyard and put a fence around it. And he dug a pit for a winepress, and he built a tower and leased its tenants and went away to another country." And then it talks about he kept sending back servants, one after another after another. And each of these servants is meant to represent Israel, the servants of the Lord, of the prophets of the Old Testament. And each of them is rejected. They don't listen to him. Some of them they mistreat and beat. Some of them they even kill. And then eventually it says in verse 6, he says, "And he still had one other, a beloved son. And he finally sent to them, saying, they will respect my son, surely. But those tenants said to one another, this is the heir. Come and let us kill him, and the inheritance will be ours. And they took him and killed him and threw him out of the vineyard. And what will the vineyard owner do? Will he not come and destroy the tenants and give the vineyard to others?" And I think this is an interesting verse where God is saying, I even sent my own son to you and you didn't get it. You missed the opportunity. Because I think so much of Palm Sunday is we have all these expectations of what we want God to do. We want God to fix things. Because in Israel's day, they wanted Jesus to deliver them from the political and social and economic pressures of Rome. They wanted to be delivered from that and instead be their own country and to be free. And so that was what they wanted Jesus to do. They wanted him to be their king in a literal earthly sense, instead of him being their sovereign king, the king over the universe, their creator king and Lord spiritually. And so when they saw this parable, when the Pharisees heard this parable, it says they knew that Jesus was talking about them, and immediately they started to plot to kill him. And there's that irony there of Jesus says, I sent my own son, and you went and plotted to kill him. And immediately as he's saying that, they're like, oh, I know what he's doing. And immediately they do and fulfill this parable. And so I share all this to kind of unpack for us a little bit of some of the context of Jesus being more and more clear about why he came on Palm Sunday to Jerusalem, why he came to die, was because we wouldn't get it at first. Even the disciples, it says in Matthew 28, right before Jesus gives the Great Commission, it says some worshiped Jesus, but others still doubted. We know the story of doubting Thomas, that all the other disciples got to see the resurrected Jesus, but Thomas said, unless I touch his hands and I touch his feet and the hole in his side, I'm not going to believe. And so even in these moments with this coronavirus and COVID-19, when we're struggling, we're wondering, what is God doing in our midst? Why are we going through all these things? Why isn't God fixing it? Why isn't God doing what I want him to do? I think this is a beautiful opportunity for us to, instead of worry about what's not going the way we want to, it's a beautiful opportunity for us to abide in Jesus, to spend a little more time with Jesus, that a lot of things are being stripped away, distractions, things that we used to clutter up our time, and instead we have a little bit more free time with our family and free time to spend time with the Lord, to go out on a walk and just pray, or to just sit in our office and just light a candle and say, God, would you meet with me in this moment? To set aside some time to abide with Jesus. And so my encouragement to you guys is this, that you dive deeper and deeper into God's word, that you have an opportunity to really experience Easter in a new way. And guys, I'm so thankful that we have opportunities to meet digitally and online. If you guys need anything at all, I encourage you guys to call me or text me or email me. And I'd love to catch up with each and every one of you. And I look forward to seeing you guys on our next Zoom call on Sundays. You guys have a great week, and God bless.